Why Japanese companies hate Gen Z? We have to know. Why do they hate Gen Z?
Wars, poverty, climate change. But forget all that, because one of the more pressing issues many countries are noted to facing is, of course, Generation Z.
Wait, you think it's because Gen Z tried to cancel Eminem and that's why Japan is mad at them? Is that what you're suggesting?
In many aspects, the Gen Z of Japan share the same kind of characteristics as Gen Z in most parts of the world. They're digital natives, growing up in a world where the internet already existed, and during the rise of social media. Part of what this means is younger Japanese people are used to obtaining raw information about what is happening in Japan and around the world. Previous generations were, and many still, are used to gaining their information from traditional forms of media like newspapers and TV. In fact, a huge reason why traditional media is still thriving in Japan is simply because there aren't as many young people, with the average age being around 49, making—
Damn, Unkin who? Look at this guy. I'm not feeling shamed because I read newspapers, bro. You guys don't get the raw information from social media? No, bro, it's embarrassing.
What this has resulted in is a communication divide between Gen Z and previous generations on a range of topics. However, we are seeing a rise in more older Japanese internet users within more recent years. But let's get to the main issue, which is typically brought up when talking about Gen Z: work. Japanese society is heavily centered around working, and nothing beats social credit like being a full-time employee, aka seishain, in a top company. Japanese company practices also typically require a level of commitment that goes beyond the job description, and being active in trying to get your boss to like you so you can climb the corporate ladder, which is also assumed to be something you want to do.
I mean, is that... I'm assuming he's saying they don't buy into that. Is that really not a normal response to a lost 2 decades of the economy? Insane overwork? Like low growth? Isn't that like what you'd expect young people to do, is like fucking rebel against that?
Overall, the expectation for Japanese companies is that you'll stay within that company for life, being moved into different departments at the company's convenience. However, many of the Gen Z in Japan are seeing work differently, seeing it as just a place to work. I know, shocking. This has led to complaints from superiors that they aren't able to communicate and bond anymore with those below them, as many younger workers aren't as keen on chit-chatting and also refuse to go out drinking with their boss after work, preferring to prioritize their private time. Not only that, a big complaint about Gen Z when it comes to communication within the workplace is that they're too sensitive. Reasoning for this is the notable increase in the types of haras there are. Hara meaning harassment. The most common type of hara you are bound to hear about is sekuhara, which stands for sexual harassment.
Yeah, this sounds like... It sounds like the Gen Z are well on the right path. I think Japan notoriously has a culture of terrible sexual harassment. The fact that they're trying to change that is like, it's not, oh, these fucking kids don't get it.
But now, different haras are constantly popping up, and many attribute this to Gen Z. For example, yumehara. Yume meaning dream. Essentially, this is when your boss or senpai asks you about your dreams, as in what you aspire to do. Some preferring to just not talk about their dreams, or just not having any dreams in the first place, feeling that—
Well, that's not harassment. I don't know how common that is, but that's not harassment. Someone asking you what your aspirations are is not harassment. No, it's not. You hate it though? The only time it felt like, again, if you're at your work and your boss is asking you that, it pretty much means they're caring about your future. That's a good sign. What was annoying was, I remember like when I was about to graduate ASU and I had just given up being a League of Legends professional and I was trying to figure my life out. People ask me like, what are you going to do after you graduate? What's your plans? I hated that shit. I don't know, grandma. I don't fucking know. Stop asking me. That was so annoying. Every single time. But that's not harassment still. It's just fucking annoying. That's dream hara? Yeah, well. But if your boss is asking that, that means you already have a job. And your boss is mostly asking like if you have, I don't know, ambition. Probably like scouting you out to move up in the company.
What also counts as yumehara is when those superiors talk about their dreams. Basically because the younger workers don't really care. There is also another trait about Gen Z that is—
Okay, that's also not harassment. Someone older than you telling you about their ambitions or dreams is not harassment. That's don't care, unk. Those are certainly not on the level of sexual harassment. That's
something we often hear about in the news. They easily quit. Yes, as I mentioned before, quitting is probably the biggest issue many companies are facing with Gen Z. Forget about staying for life, some quit within a year. What's also interesting is that some will choose not to say they quit themselves, but will use an agency that is specialized in quitting.
Dude, I saw this. This is fucking crazy. They're so afraid of quitting in Japan, they'll hire someone to quit for them, which is fucking crazy. I think quitting is fine. I mean, quitting, assuming you can find a different job, is like one of the best ways they can, like, I think wages are rising for a lot of reasons in Japan, but this is one of the reasons. Like, they're naturally responding to the fact that they can get better wages by not working at one company for 40 years. However, the fact that they can't do it themselves is very funny.
Some reasons for this, though, are actually pretty understandable. You see, some bosses here simply don't say okay when you say you're going to quit. This is particularly in the case of clients who work at a black company. Some bosses will actually try to stop their employees from quitting, becoming really aggressive or even threatening them with some financial liability. Now, reasons why new grads are quitting vary from things like finding out the company wasn't like what they were told during the interview to simply not getting along with their coworkers.
I might have mentioned this before, but one of the best pieces of advice I heard from my boss at NVIDIA was when I'm interviewing people, like we're hiring people for NVIDIA, for a certain job, you're going to be tempted to oversell the job, especially if you like the candidate. If you want this candidate, you're going to be tempted to tell them all the great parts and hide the bad parts. Don't do that, because that is the number one way for them to hate the job when they start. If you're really honest about the good and bad parts of a job during an interview, then when those bad parts come up, they are 10 times more likely to respond okay. They'll be fine with it because they knew about it going in. It actually works. Like, if you know something's bad, but you agree to sign up anyway, then when that bad thing happens, you're cool with it. I think human beings are able to get over it if they just know it's coming. If you know, like, it's going to be really rough around launches, you know, we're going to work hard hours around launch, whatever. You tell them the truth, then they're like, okay, I know that going in. Yeah, being blindsided is what pisses people off.
But there is another trend: fear for the future. To be honest, this isn't just Gen Z, but many of the younger generation are concerned that they aren't obtaining the skills they need for future progress, or see their superiors are not getting pay increases, but are just doing double the amount of work.
You know what's interesting is, like, the relative power young workers are going to have, especially in Japan, it's going to be astronomical, because as they are so scarce and as society gets older, their ability to demand wage increases, jobs, opportunity, it's going to be relatively, it's like whenever after the Black Death wiped out all the peasants, the remaining peasants made insane gains. It was like the only time we've ever fucking reduced the power level between peasants and lords was because there was so few peasants that, like, they had insane amount of, they were so in demand. It's not good for the society, but it's going to be funny how much relative power they're going to have.
Boils down to Gen Z wanting a good work environment where they also feel that their future is secure. The power balance has started to shift in Japan. It's no longer about what the employees can do for the company, but what the company can do for.
So you're saying we should make COVID worse? Yeah, that was my thesis. Yeah, that's the takeaway. The problem is that I think the Black Death thing worked because the economy was based around farming and you needed peasants to work the land. And that was like where all the wealth came from. But nowadays, I feel like all the wealth is in assets and and digital goods. It's so different, you know? You can have one person do the work of 1,000 farming with machines. So I'm not sure it would work the same.
Okay guys, that's going to do it for this video. As someone who has worked in a number of Japanese companies with a lot of the younger generation, with a lot of Gen Z, honestly speaking, I can see their drive, I can see their passion, I can see that they actually do want to work, but they also want to improve their skills. They are scared. They're worried about what is going to happen to them. Economically speaking, Japan is not in the best of places, and they know it. All of the Gen Z know it, and they are expecting things from companies now. They want to see that those companies are going to provide for their futures. So yeah, Japanese companies are just going to have to step up. That's basically the deal.
I mean, there was some unique Japan things there, but I guess it's pretty true globally, is that general feeling.